Hello, and welcome to the W.A.I.T channel. What Am I Thinking? A podcast where two sisters share uplifting conversations on fun and sometimes serious topics.
Join us each week by clicking the notification bell and subscribing to our channel. If you enjoy the show, use the share link. It's one of the best ways to expand the conversation.
Welcome to the W.A.I.T channel. What am I thinking? Today's topic will be us revisiting Roe v. Wade since it has now been overturned. To look at the landscape of the states with the trigger laws and just the overall impact that something like this can have on our society, and what does it really say about us as a nation? I know that there was a time I would say there are a lot of people of faith that feel as if once this law has been overturned, that it places us in a place of truly saying that lives matter to us and that spirit of death is lifted. That's sort of what I kind of have heard from a lot of people of faith. But death of one kind may have been lifted, but I think you have put a spirit of another type of death over the lives of others. So I don't know. What are you thinking about this, Lori?
First off, that whatever you're listening to, I'm glad that I did not listen to that, because it amazes me how we in our society, and by that I mean Western society, how we can create scenarios and situations where death is okay. Mm-hmm. We can legitimize it, and we can even make laws around it. Mm-hmm. And it's okay. But we're going to choose the particular ones that we feel now, if we allow those to stand, is an evil spirit, or is something bad about it, or find some Bible verse to support what we're saying. Death is death. Mm-hmm. If you're going to talk about it in that way, death is death. So then, we can't have professional killers, which are our soldiers. Mm-hmm. They're trained to protect us. They're trained to use weapons. They're trained to kill people. They're not going over there to hold hands and kumbaya, but we're okay with that. And I'm not saying not to support our military. I'm making a point. Are you going to be pacifists like the Quakers who don't believe in that at all? Now, if everybody's saying that that's what you are, then I can kind of buy what you just said about the evils of lifting the spirit of death on this. I just think it's a crock. I really do. I read an article yesterday, because this is how far we take things sometimes if you give a person a bone. A young lady had a fetal demise early in her pregnancy. I think she was still in her first trimester. Mm-hmm. And she was trying to find a doctor to basically remove the baby. Mm-hmm. Which would be to abort the pregnancy. Mm-hmm. It's a fetal demise. Mm-hmm. She had to carry that baby that she knew was dead for 2 weeks until she could find someone. Because you got physicians who are afraid to do things. Mm-hmm. That is beyond. Yeah. That is beyond. And I know in some southern states, some small town where you'll have someone who is ignorant of the law or not wanting to look beyond that and take care of the patient, that's where we are. Yeah. That's where this has gotten us.
Yeah. but keeping that fetus in her body could cause
infection.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and so that's why I'm like, so we're willing to jeopardize a life to bring another life in that requires so, you know, and it's one of those things. Do you want a child born who already will be at a disadvantage because their parent has been lost their life? You know, and even when we talk about the exceptions, I'm like, who gets to pick what's okay and what's it's just a thing to me that once again we're trying to legislate our morals onto someone else. And you know, I know what I think would be okay for me, but how can I say what's okay for someone else? And the journey that I'm on now, having a child with special needs, even that has changed some for me, because if something were to happen for her, I wouldn't want to put her through anything like that because it would be detrimental for her. And no, I wouldn't do that for her. So even though I would say what I would say for me is okay, it wouldn't be the same for her.
You know,
and I would have never thought that that would be a choice that I would make under any circumstance. But guess what? She's the life that I'm responsible for
protecting, right? Absolutely.
On this earth to protect.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to do what I need to do to preserve her life and her well-being as best I can. And a pregnancy for her would be horrific. It would be, who knows? I couldn't even fathom it.
It would be a different situation, and it would be somewhat of a different situation if every safeguard and every agency to be that net was actually intact, in place, and it worked. But we know we have a broken foster care system.
Right.
We have broken social services system. I could go on and on and on. We have people who live in areas where poverty is not just a personal thing, it is a generational thing, where they don't have access to things that the average person may have access to. We know in rural areas, just to get to a clinic or to have regular doctor's appointments. So our systems, for people to say, well, now that we have this taken care of, we're going to take care of those babies and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. I would ask, where were you when it needed to be done before?
Right.
So you already got a broken system. Are you going to Band-Aid the system that you have? Or are you for real this time going to take care? Do you remember the kids in, I want to say it was in Las Vegas, that they were living in the house with these two parents and they had like 10, 12 kids and they had never...
Oh, it was in California.
California, right. So we find out that the social service and the child protective services, you know, they all came in and we're going to take these kids. And what we come to find out, those same children who lived horrific lives were put in homes where they were sexually abused, physically abused, psychologically abused. These are systems that we have in place. So how about we try to first just understand how the pregnancies just happen in the first place? And even that we don't have the answers to.
We don't. And the thing is that you're doing all these things to impact what the woman can do, but what are you doing on the other side? She didn't get pregnant alone.
Yes.
So what are you doing on the other side to address that? whether it is consenting or not. There is a man involved.
Absolutely.
There's zero conversation.
It's like the history in this country is horrible when it comes to women's rights and children's rights. And it's like women and children just keep getting hit and hit and hit. Where does the man's responsibility fall in this? How many homes do you have statistically, let's just say black homes, where it's a single parent home? And nothing really has been done to pull these fathers in. You have some guys who have multiple mothers and multiple children with each one of these mothers. System's not doing anything for that. And now, because she can't get to have an abortion, it's going to exponentially get worse.
I know.
It just is.
I know. There's so many variables to the equation of taking away someone's choice to proceed in what they feel is in their best interest. And most of them don't have good scenarios when you play them out.
It's a hard subject to have to talk about. And I remember when years ago, as a home care nurse, I remember seeing a patient. The day I went to see her, she had delivered vaginally, but she had stayed an additional day to have her tubes tied. Okay, her and her husband were done. I kid you not, 10 months later, I pulled up in front of this house and I'm looking, wow, I recognize this. This looks familiar to me. I go in, her and her husband meet me at the door. You were here with our last baby. And then the wife says, yeah, when I got my tubes tied, it failed.
Wow.
Right. So even in this scenario, even though she
did her part.
Right. We know that with the reproductive system, there's only one way that a baby's not going to be a part of that scenario. Even with condoms, tubal ligations, vasectomies, birth control pills, IUDs. I mean, I could go on and on.
Yeah.
Jeff Goldblum's Jurassic Park, life finds a way.
Yeah, that is true.
Yes.
That is true. Yeah. And with that being said, then individuals, I mean, because I know we want to say that, as adults, we know how not to get pregnant. We say all these things are out there. But as you say, even when you do your part, things can happen.
And thankfully, this was a good situation.
Yes, where they were receptive of it and they made it work for them instead of against them. Hopefully, they have a lawsuit against the doctor.
I'm sorry, but they let you know when you sign that paperwork, it's not 100%.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those situations where you look at all these factors, and even when there are things that put in place to help prevent the pregnancy, but of course, some politicians want to take away the contraceptives now. So it's like, as I'm having that conversation, I'm like, well, even that is not going to be and why would you, it's just baffling to me.
That the frightening thing about it is that when it was a federal law, everybody was protected. And now, depending on what state you live in, not everybody, you hear, well, just move, leave, go someplace else. I have moved across state lines.
Right.
It costs a lot of money to pack up, to uproot your life.
Right.
It's not that easy for some people just to uproot and move and leave and go someplace else.
And when somebody has family land and property and a home, you're not going to, especially in this real estate market,
Right.
going to just be able to duplicate that
Right.
somewhere else.
Right.
That's not how it works. So it's just a situation where I'm hoping that there's some things that as a society we can come to a better resolution than where we are right now.
And I think I just, before we end the conversation, and to be clear, I am not pro-abortion.
Same.
But I believe that you cannot create laws to govern morality
Right.
or someone's body.
I agree.
And we want whatever choices people make, we want to help them make the safest and smartest choices. That's the reason they did away with prohibition. People were making alcohol and people were going blind. That's one of the reasons it wasn't regulated. We're going to give it to you and we're going to make sure it's safe. Same thing with marijuana. We're going to have distilleries and we're going to make sure it's safe. We're not telling you to go out and drink. We're not
Right.
telling you to go out and smoke marijuana, but we're going to make it safe.
Right. Right.
The same should
Right.
be allowed or afforded to women for abortions.
And when you think about those things, let's take alcohol in particular. Can we look at the lives that alcohol impacts in a negative, very detrimental way?
Yeah.
But we're not rolling that law back.
Right.
This is no different. People make a choice on how they're going to allow substances in their lives.
Clean needle programs.
Yes, yeah, but of course there are people that are against that, though. I hate to tell you. But it's one of those things that for these people of faith, which I consider myself a person of faith, we cannot force our belief system onto another human being. And the God that most evangelical Christians serve, that God gives us free will. So how can you, as a lawmaker who considers yourself a person of faith, make a law that's taking away someone's free will that is not truly impinging upon, I guess in their minds, they want to say it is the life of another, but that life cannot exist outside of the body. So the person that is managing that body gets to control what happens to it. And that's just the way it kind of should be. Whether you agree with the choice they make or not, they have to answer for that choice and live with the consequences of that choice. That's what happens in day-to-day life. So hopefully we can get to a space where we respect all of the life that is here, present, existing independently.
Let's start with that first.
Yes, yes.
Because we still don't have that right.
Right. If we can do that, then the other things will flow and take care of themselves in a way that's hopefully humane and respectful. So when it comes to the rolling back of Roe v. Wade, what we're thinking is, first things first, let's take care of the life that's here, present, and let's not force our wheels upon anyone else, regardless of what that is. So, as a society, we're all pro-life. We're all pro-life. Nobody is jumping up and down to have an abortion. But if it's a choice they feel they need to make, let them deal with the consequences that come with it, and let that not be jail and arrest. So that's what we're thinking. Tune in next week as we will share more about what we're thinking.